Good morning. It is Thursday, February the 24th, 2022. So I need that series started here. Start a walk. All right. So, good morning, and yeah, welcome to the what are we doing? The walks around the rivers of life, a series where all right, let's try this again. It stopped recording on me. I hope it'll work fine this time. I'm recording this on a Samsung Galaxy phone. It was like it's like a old, I think it's a Galaxy. It's an old, it's like $50 Walmart phone, like prepaid phone. So we're not talking like super nice super nice quality, but I mean at one point it was a flagship phone, right? So it's not too bad. So whew, yeah, what was that? Yeah, so yeah, so we were I was trying to do the video yesterday, and it was like really long, and so I had to like record a session yesterday afternoon of me trying to do it very quickly, and I thought it came out fairly humorous. I thought it was pretty funny, all said and done, but it took like 4 takes, so I ended up taking like, I don't know, 2 hours or something like that. Maybe 2.5 if you include the flubbed first attempt. No, actually 3 hours if you include the flubbed first attempt. So yeah, that was an expensive. My ramblings were an expensive mistake. So yeah, I was trying not to do that again in the future. I need to. The whole reason why you don't see any fancy editing or anything is, frankly, I don't have the time to devote to like making fancy videos. So we've got to get the most out of what we can do just right there in the camera, you know, and upload, because I don't have time to get multiple shots and multiple takes of things and then edit them together, add in B-roll and title screens and you know, record from multiple camera angles. So I don't have time. I'm like, this is not my job. You know, like you see these fancy YouTube people, I'm like, they spend all day, multiple days on one little 10-minute video, you know, but that's their job, and that's why it's such high quality, is because one, they're doing it every day, and two, they're devoting a lot of time to each one. So we're doing the 80-20 principle. We're getting 80% of the value with 20% of the effort, or at least in principle we are. Yeah. So today's topic is one of the YouTubers that I follow. His name's Bieto. He's not just a YouTuber. He was like a music producer, a fairly high profile music producer. I think he did. I think he produced Shinedown. I'm not sure, or something like that. But he was involved with, like, if you look at some of his work, if you hear him talk, you just know that the dude's just like overflowing with industry information. Anyway, so one of his videos he did a couple days back was why is old music like taking over the charts? So if you look at like the Spotify charts or whatever, and there's like an enormous amount of plays of music that is like over like 30 years old. I mean, and classics have always been, like, you know, popular. You always had your classic stations, but even in, I think, sales charts, you're seeing. I think he was talking about, even in the sales charts, old music was still pretty much outselling like new music. And this dude and also me, I'm not snobbish. I don't think that old music is necessarily always better. I like music of all types, but I think it's really weird though when you really start thinking about it and realize, like even young kids, they know a lot of the music from like the 80s and the 90s and the 70s. Even young kids know, like, even from my generation, like Nirvana and Foo Fighters and stuff like that. Those are still huge names, even to young people. And it's actually kind of odd. Like, there were always the rock and roller kids that knew, you know. So like when I was growing up, you had the people in my group, and they knew, you know, who, I don't know, Led Zeppelin was, and the Who, and, you know, all these classic bands. We knew who they were by name, you know. It's not we just heard it on TV or something. We had listened to a lot of their music, like, on purpose. But nowadays, kids, they know, you know, the Foo Fighters as much as they know the Beatles, and it's kind of odd. And rock and roll in particular is like pretty much dead. Country does way better, and of course pop music does even better than that. But even when you start, you know, break it down in pretty much any genre or something, and I can even attest to personally, I don't listen to, this is where the most extreme example for me is country music. I pretty much will not listen to modern country. It's not snobbish. I'm not being snobbish here when I say this. I don't like it because it's not country to me. You can't just say cold beer, pickup truck, and my dog died or whatever. You know, you can't just put those themes in music and call it country. There's a sound that country has. There's a feeling in country. And to be fair, I think one of the common themes in country is the pun in country. There's always, you know, look at a lot of the old great country songs, and I'm not going to be able to think of one off the top of my head, but they're basically puns, and that's the whole hook of the song is based on the pun, and that's a long tradition in country, and that's about the only thing that I see that country music still does that harkens back to the old style. Everything else, the instrumentals, you know, the compositions, the way they produce the songs. Not that I'm a expert in all of these things, but I know what I listen to, and it doesn't sound like country. And I know that I'm right because I have found some artists that are still doing country, like old style country. And this is not hating on, I don't know, the Dixie Chicks, or what's that girl with the funky eyes, really skinny girl. She's like huge. I can't remember the name of her. You're screaming at the screen right now. Blonde hair, writes about her boyfriends, notoriously. You're screaming at the screen. I think, yeah. That girl. Yeah. Thanks. And thanks for she's redoing all her albums right now, which is so cool. Like when she first got started, they like the music recording industry did, you know, what the music recording industry does, and had her sign away her masters to her songs, which is, I don't know how they get away with this kind of stuff. But and then the masters got sold from various entities along the way. Taylor Swift tried to buy them back. They wouldn't sell to her, and then eventually they sold them to someone else. And then finally she was like, you know what? I'll just re-record everything with blackjacks and hookers. So that's what she did. So she's been redoing all her albums, and I'm like, that is amazing, you know. It's just like, fuck you, you know, music industry. I'm the talent here. I'm gonna redo everything. I got the money. I could redo it. I don't need you. I fucking love it. I know it's not really David and the Goliath anymore, because Taylor is like, you know, multi-millionaire or whatever, you know. She's like uber wealthy, but it's still like, I just love the thought of the talent, and I do think she's very talented, that she's just taking it back, you know. Because it's notorious. You remember the Beatles? They lost ownership. Paul, you know the story. Like Paul McCartney lost ownership, tried to get ownership back, and Michael Jackson ended up buying it out from under him, and all of these bands that lose rights to just random, you know, their rights gets passed around, and they don't have any say over, you know, they can't get the masters back, and so they can actually own their own music after they become successful. But yeah, so to get back on topic, I'm not exactly sure why that is, that music is so, you know, the most cynical people would say, well, it's because it's so fake and overproduced. And I do think that's a part of it. Probably even a big part of it. But at the same time, like, I love electronic music. and probably more than any other thing that I want to, like, as far as music, I know I'm learning the guitar, but more than anything, if I was trying to produce music, I would probably want to do some form of electronic music. And I'll tell you why. Because you can put all of your time and focus into the production, into the songwriting. I feel like you could iterate a lot faster if you're not tied to, if your creative ability is not limited to how well you play an instrument. So like I play, I spent 7-8 years, I don't know, maybe a total of 10 years playing the trumpet, like really regularly. I got fairly good, but I was nowhere near what would be needed to play professionally. I think you can get away with guitar and keyboards. You don't have to, that skill level isn't, you don't have to be as skilled with those, but still we're talking about really a couple of years at least before you're at some reasonable level of confidence. And I feel like a lot of, if your goal is to just make your own music, I don't feel like learning an instrument is really the ideal vehicle to doing that. I am not discounting that there's a lot of value and creativity and all of the good stuff from learning an instrument or from playing with others, like live. Sure, yeah, that is huge and everything, but I still think, like, if you're trying to get out the door and you just sort of like, hey, I want to be a pop star, say you're, I don't know, 13 years old, say I want to be like a pop star, I want to be, this really famous artist, music artist. I think probably the quickest path to that, the most surest path, is probably get you electronic keyboard, a Midi keyboard, not like some expensive, just like a little Midi controller keyboard for like $100, really cheap, and they're amazing. It's incredible, really, what they can do. You get like a little cheap little Midi. That's one of my. I want to get one eventually. It's probably one of my rewards for me being a good boy eventually down the road. But for like $100, you get this great little MIDI controller, and then you just hook it up to your computer, and suddenly you have just about every instrument you could conceive of played at virtuoso skill. You can even, and you could write your songs one note at a time in the computer, and you could fudge the notes and make them more sloppy. It's not the same as, I'm not saying that it's the same as playing it live. I'm saying it's good enough, and the iteration speed, how much volume that you will be able to play like right out from the get-go, and you stay consistent with it. I have no doubt that if somebody was making music, they bought a keyboard on their 12th birthday or whatever, and they said, hey, I'm going to be the next, I don't know, Lady Gaga. Love Lady Gaga. But I'm going to be the next Lady Gaga. What they could do is they get one of these, so they get a MIDI keyboard for their birthday, and then every day they create music in some form or fashion for 30 minutes each day. And they continue that until they're like 18 or 19 years old. And they're going to be freaking amazing. Now, if they had learned an instrument, obviously they would be amazing, but they would be amazing at playing an instrument. The difference here is if you get the Midi keyboard, which you have to do in a music production suite, you have to use the thing called a DAW, digital audio workstation. You're producing music at that point. So you have not only been practicing songwriting and playing with the little keyboard, you have also been practicing music production that whole time. In very similar workflow that you would have to do so professionally, because a lot of these digital workstations are just pretty much the same things that you would use if you were a professional. So I don't know where I'm going to go with that. Why? I think another thing. See, here's the interesting thing. Like, if you look at movies, so going back to the main topic, that why is music like dominated by old music right now? You don't see the same thing pretty much anywhere. Art is not dominated by old art. It's you know, like movies. Movies is probably the biggest example. There is a lot of popularity in old music, but it's not selling old movies. But old movies are not outselling new movies, which is really astounding. But when I really think about it, I'm like, well, here's the thing. I think, sorry, we're scratching the mic here. I think if there's one thing there is that music production has pretty much peaked. And I do believe virtuosity, the skill of like playing individual instruments and stuff like that, I think that's why electronic music and whatnot, or synthesized music, is a lot more popular nowadays, because you can't tell. That's just the sound of the music. You can't tell that it's poorly played, right? So if I want to include a guitar track in my song, I need somebody who actually knows how to play the guitar and play it well. Whereas if it's just, you know, electronic music, then that's just the nature. It's not bad that it's electronic. That's just the nature of the medium of electronic music. It's not a slight against it. You don't hear the electronic, oh, they clearly don't know how to play. No, that's part of the sound, you know, that everything is super on the beat and pitch perfect and everything like that. That's just part of the sound. So yeah, I think the production of music has peaked. And so, unlike movies are way better. Just the technical parts of movie making, the camera, the visual effects, even the sounds, the lighting, arguably the stories, all of these things, they're at generally a much higher quality than they were in the past, and it shows. So you could say, well, this is just a blockbuster. Even your trash blockbuster film, and this isn't saying it's trash, but say like the latest Avengers film, it's just like an amazing movie on pretty much any metric compared to, you know, the metrics of the movies as they were made, I don't know, like in 1970 or 1980. It's just there were great movies from back then and before, but the technical skill that goes into movies nowadays is just it's light years ahead. And so that's why I think people still watch movies. Plus I think there's more like degrees of freedom in making a movie. There's a lot more places you can go. I mean, you can go off into new universes if you need to, but with music, you're stuck with the same notes as everybody else, right? You have pretty much the same chords as anybody else that's going to be able to use. Many of the instruments that are going to be viable for a popular composition are all, you got keyboards, guitar, bass, lead guitar, acoustic guitar, maybe you get a steel guitar in there every now and then, maybe some violins, maybe some trumpets, trombones, saxophone. You get what I'm saying. We're talking about dozens of instruments of like really distinct instruments that you would want to play, versus how many different types of different types of ways can you I don't know, try to make an analogy. I don't think I'm gonna make an analogy with movie making, but you get what I'm saying. I feel like there's a broader canvas in movies that makes it so that, and there's been so much more technology. Yeah, this is the noise I have to deal with on my road every freaking morning. I think this is, I like to say that I wake up with the sun, but I really think that I wake up to the cars. Because my room's like right there in the front of the room. Okay, so yeah, so I do think that movies are, that the canvas they paint on is a lot broader and varied, and the technologies behind doing so are so much better than they ever would have, than they haven't been in the past, and that is why they're so awesome now, and continue to sell. But I think music has kind of peaked. That music is about as good as it's ever going to get, and we have more options, and that's the only way that things have gotten better is we've just got more options now. So you can find 20 different artists that play the exact same style on Spotify, and as your favorite artist. Or you can find, there's so much good music, but one, it's hard to find because really we're talking about volume, and then there's also the aspect that there is something about the older music that was played live. They did hours and hours and hours and hours of sets to try and get that perfect recording on tape. To create their master for that album, and I think it shows. I think it shows that in the vocals you didn't have as much or any auto-tune. So the singer, they had to they had to sing. They had to hit all of the notes. They had to be on time. The drummers, they had to be on time. They had to, the guitar players, they had to hit all of their notes. There was more musicality back then, I think, when you had less digital manipulation. I think it's really easy for producers to, so that's part of why we got more music, is because music is cheaper to produce, right? And I think that comes at the loss of that studio time, because that's the biggest driver of cost, right? So if you can get a band in, I'm talking completely out of my ass, I'm not a music producer, anybody random watching this, but I think if you get a band in there for half a day to produce their album versus weeks, you know, being like in the studio recording things, that's obviously a huge savings in cost, right? And of course, with all the digital tools now a lot of times you can do a decent recording like at your home or whatnot. And I'm undermining my argument here. I don't know why old music is outselling new music, but I do know what you could say 15% on car services. No, I do know that this video is over because I have run out of things to say, and I don't know if you found this if you like this, but yeah, I do this every day. If you're still watching, check out tomorrow's video because this one is done. Have a good day. Bye guys.